Hello guys and welcome to a new Wargame video today by me Vulcan. Today I am bringing you a 2 versus 2 on Hamar. Now I haven't brought you a Wargame video in a while. Unfortunately this one's been incredibly delayed compared to the last one, so I try and get one out at least once a week for those of you incredibly interested in my Wargame videos. I really enjoy casting them, it's just having the time to play the games and find one that's interesting enough to record. Now this one's more of a fun one than a sort of teaching one. I like to analyze replays that generally give some sort of insight in how to play the game. But this time round, I picked a replay that was fun. And the reason for that was because I'm using a Norwegian deck. Now this is actually the first game I think I played with this deck, or maybe the second. I think I already played one before this and I won it, but we won it too quickly, so I decided to play another one, and this one took a bit longer and was a bit more fun to watch. So anyway, yeah, I've got a Norwegian deck, pretty strong. It's a Norwegian Cat A deck, and I'm joined by Val on my team who's got an American deck, I believe. Now on the enemy team, we're playing against PK and Talinki 4. You can see exactly what we have in store for the start of the game. So I think these guys were coordinated, and we'll see definitely how it goes. So I'm not going to go over too much of what you just saw there, but you can see some of my units. Now I have these M621s. I can't exactly remember the Norwegian units off my heart, so we'll have to wait until they get dropped off for me to explain what's inside them. I think I have 4 units of Stormers in the Saisu XA 180s. I've got Val backing me up with 4 LVTP 7A1s with Marines, I think it is. And then I've got M621s with LHV, I think it's the reserve Norwegian infantry. And then my command vehicle is an M577 KPV, which is basically the same as the American one. Then following up that, we've got some NM195s. These are actually great counters to helicopter rushes. And then we've also got a couple of NOAAs, which are long-range radar missiles for anti-air. Then Bal's got his M727 Ihawks, which are the same as my NOAAs in purpose, and then some M35s with probably Dragon 2s in, and then LVTP 7A1s with Marines, and M2A1 Bradley's IFBs with Riflemen. So yeah, if I get a few of these units wrong, I apologise, but I think I might have got them all right. My knowledge is hopefully paying off. So I've got this CV here, which is hopefully going to travel up to Gulf. I've also got this one just here, which is going to capture Foxtrot. Now this is a conquest game, so it's vital that we get our CVs into our sectors as quickly as possible. I've also led on with a couple of recon units. I probably should have brought in some more recon than I actually did throughout this game, but basically these rovers were what I needed in front of my sort of convoys in order to make sure that I wasn't running into anything absolutely terrible. Now ideally I would have brought in a helicopter like Val decided to do a bit later on, and we would have spotted this lot a lot earlier. So anyway, let's change it to my point of view and we shall continue from what I can see. So the idea is I'll get my 12 units of LHV reservists into the town. My Saisus with the Stormers are heading up, like spearheading the charge, hopefully going to pick off some units before they can get to the town. The reason I let the Saisus go so far in front is because they're incredibly fast vehicle carriers. They actually have a road speed of 150 kilometers per hour, which is faster than the trucks, which go 110 kilometers per hour. Generally, these Stormers would get there about the same time as obviously enemy 150 kilometers per hour fast move unit, but the Stormers are very powerful. Stormers have a CQC MG3, and that is incredibly good. They also have 6 Carl Gustav missiles, and here you can see that I think I see just a couple of their Mi-17s to begin with, and then all of a sudden, as the rest take off, I see two groups of Mi-17s pulling away from each other. Now one belongs to Talinki, the other one belongs to PK. At this point, I know my Stormers are in for a bad time, and I'm trying to basically pull them back at that point into the defensive position. Val's brought up his LVTPs with his US Marines, and I've got my LVH following up the back to provide some substance to my battle. So I brought up a couple of NM195s with this original push into the centre sector. Unfortunately, I get completely overwhelmed. One's already been destroyed by the Mi-17s, and then my other two that are left are just sitting there waiting for their RBS-70s to reload and try and shoot some down. So we managed to kill one at this point. My Saisus are doing some damage, and I also bring in 3 freedom fighters at the start of the game to have a go at shooting those down. Now if we follow one of these freedom fighters, we'll see what happens as the battle continues. We have some MiG-31 interceptors on the horizon. My freedom fighters are having fun shooting these guys down with their cannons, but now we've got a MiG-31 in the way. So 2 MiG-31s taking on my 4 freedom fighters. 2 have been currently shot down. One already crashed down here, one crashed over there, and now I've brought in more freedom fighters to attack their MiG-31s. Now what I proceeded to find out was that my Stormers had already been killed by this point by the Spetsnaz, which completely destroy people at close combat due to their napalm rockets, but also the enemy has Iglas in the town, and they actually shot down one of my freedom fighters. So I've gone into this battle. He's brought in 2 MiG-31s, which managed to fend off 8 freedom fighters. Yes, I had 8 of them. I survived with 4. Freedom fighters cost 35 points each. They have twin autocannon and some rocket pods. And basically, they're pretty much throwaway units. I wasn't too concerned at this point. What I was concerned about was the amount of Mi-17s that were just destroying my reserve infantry, which I was hoping would be able to hold off the enemy for a little bit longer. But with the rocket barrages coming in from these Mi-17s, you can see that the units just get annihilated. And I'm really trying to figure out what I can do. So now is the time to rush in all of the AA I can muster. Now ideally I shouldn't have brought them all in separately, but that was just me rushing a little. Val's already taken the initiative and got 2 M1097 Avengers into the picture, and you can see just how much damage he does onto Talinki's Mi-17s. Unfortunately, PKs are away from them, and thus they don't get hit by the HE power of those Avengers missiles, and that way managed to survive and take out these US Marines that eventually get pinned by the amount of 12.7mm machine guns that are firing towards them. However, if the LVTPs can fire off their grenade launchers, then they will kill their helicopters very quickly, as you can see just happened right there. I have got these NM195s coming up now. They still have a lot of Mi-17s killing the US Marines though. The LVTPs are out of range of their grenade launchers, so that's not going to help. And now I've basically attack moved these NM195s to help out with the situation. You can see them firing off these RBS-70s. Very nice missile system, but unfortunately they kept missing as the movement of the helicopters was actually rather unpredictable, and when they started to flee, they went out of max range. So here, the NM195 actually has a 9 accuracy, which is a 45% chance of hit at max range. So you can see that every other one is more or less hitting, but because these Mi-17s actually have 6 HP, if they get hit they don't die, because the NM195s have 5 HE power. So it's going to take more than 1 missile per enemy helicopter, and that's why they weren't as effective as I maybe would have hoped. So we've rushed in all of this anti-air. Val's brought up some PVADs, and another Avenger. I've got my NM195s in position to basically fend off the push against my generally undefended CVs. I also spotted Mi-26 land in the town, so I did kill that with my freedom fighters. You can see the rockets come in there, and little 3 squadron just pinpoint attack on that. That stood no chance. Anyway, that helped us out. Meanwhile, on the left, Val's managed to drop off his 2 units of riflemen. They took a reasonable amount of fire from an Mi-24, I believe, but now are being harassed by ASU-85s as they try to run towards a UAZ 469, which is brought in to capture their sectors. Now, at this point, the enemy has a rather massive strategic advantage. They own the town. The only trouble is, we already captured all our sectors, and they did not. They took a long time, and you can see that we're already 279 points ahead, even though our losses at this point must have been pretty high. We managed to recover very well, and thankfully, due to the cost of the Mi-17s, our kill-to-death ratio actually improved throughout the game. But what they didn't really manage to do was use this tactical advantage to their advantage. They didn't use their pressure from this town to push us out of a hotel, for example. They could have easily come down from Delta and used Conkers that are sitting here to snipe units to try and run away. Now that would have been a nice play to do, and it would have made us equal with them in terms of capture points. At this point they're being a bit too slow with getting their UAZ to echo, and therefore are giving us this massive lead that's going to be incredibly hard to get rid of. That's basically it in a nutshell. Because they put so much into the middle and forgot about their conquest points, that's basically why they fell so far behind at the beginning of the game. Now also, using that many helicopters costs a lot in a deck's creation. So that's their one-trick pony kind of thing. If they don't win off that, then they're dead. And that's often how a lot of these rush kind of decks work. Now, in hindsight, if they'd used those Mi-17s to kill off our infantry in the middle and then proceeded to push them right over all our sectors, we wouldn't have had any chance, because I barely had enough AA to shoot them down right next to the town when I had 3 NM195s. I only had 2 defending this KPV, and only 1 NOAA defending the one over here. So they could have just continued on with that Mi-17 push, and they should have noticed that as soon as they saw the quantity of the units I put towards the center sector. Now actually that brings up a really good point, because previously in games I've watched a replay back and I've thought to myself, why didn't I just keep pushing? Now there's a mind games in Wargame. When what you can't see is incredibly threatening, and it makes people not play as aggressive as they possibly could. And I think that it's something that gets away from a lot of people due to lack of recon. So at this point, for example, we've got loads of Mi-17s coming in, 2 or 4 Mi-24 VPs attacking these mountaineers. We've got a Humvee CP sitting here with 4 LVTPs and some US Marines. Now at long range, those Mi-24s are just going to annihilate them. I've got 2 units of recon infantry coming up. They get stunned on the way because I completely didn't realise that this attack was happening. And they do manage to kill the Humvee CP in the process. But if you look behind this line, there is nothing there. There is literally nothing. We've got a Humvee CP. If these helicopters continued in this direction, we'd be dead. It's as simple as that. Anyway, at this point, I decide to go all in, because I know that that's going to happen if they keep flying towards us. So I brought in 5 freedom fighters. You can see we're just completely strafing the Mi-24 VPs. The Mi-17s aren't exactly the priority at the moment. But I'm trying to use my Fighting Falcons and the Freedom Fighters at the moment to kill the Mi-24s instead. The enemy's natural counter is to bring in Mi-31s. I managed to shoot down one with 4 Freedom Fighters, and then I evac them entirely. And you're probably wondering why, and it was basically because they all became stunned by one missile that got fired by the original MiG-31 that got shot down. Now, because of my reaction with my aircraft, at this point I've killed a lot of their units on the left, and most of those helicopters are dead. But if they'd taken the initiative and attacked a lot sooner, then this Humvee CP was completely undefended. It's as simple as that. And people need to start taking those opportunities, as it would have most certainly got them back into the game. Now, because they have captured Echo and we don't hold Hotel anymore, they are going to start getting points back. If they'd taken India off us as well, it would have been a +3 advantage on their side, and that would have allowed them to do even better. So now we've spotted our next issue. We have all this like infantry and stuff, and they've got 2 UAZs sitting like ducks, ready to be shot. I'm not sure if that was quite the best analogy. But anyway, I send my Saisus straight towards them, as that seems to be the best play. The UAZs are unarmoured, so the machine guns will kill them. The Saisus are faster than the UAZs off-road, and thus will catch them up as well. So Val's gonna go ahead and mortar this UAZ here. Now just watch how lucky it is. That's right. It didn't die. It survives on 1 HP, and my Saisu is left to do the rest of the damage, and fortunately does before it gets onto the road. Now, the other UAZ in the area does actually get out of there, but this push up with my Saisus has left my infantry extremely vulnerable, and Talinki takes advantage of this with his Mi-17s, and eventually starts firing on my Volksgrenjäger. Now my Volksgrenjäger are completely helpless, can't do anything about it. Meantime though, we've got a MiG-27K, managed to come all the way in, tried just about to get out, fortunately a Noah shot takes it down. Either way, that was killing some of our remaining LVTPs, I think, in the area. Now the other Saisu, well, I managed to drop off my Volksgrenjäger at the back of this sector. My Saisu is sitting over here and waiting to get the pounce on this UAZ. Now Val does some really nice preemptive arting. He actually predicted where the UAZ would go, and the UAZ drove straight into it. It was a very nice play. Now here, the enemy thinks that they've just killed my Saisu, which leaves my Volksgrenjäger basically alive in the forest as he begins to move the Mi-17s away. Now he's already forgotten about those Volksgrenjäger because his attention must have been diverted elsewhere. Meanwhile though, I've got some Fighting Falcons, the awesome Norwegian jets, coming in to do basically flybys on these Mi-17s that are coming in to drop off lots of forces to force me out of this sector in Echo. I originally brought in 5 Freedom Fighters and did a nice rocket run on some of the Mi-17s that landed. I do follow up with those Fighting Falcons. It does force them to bring in loads of Mi-31s to counter it. Now, with their infantry being placed there, I need to do something about it. I decided to bring in 6 squads of RBS-70 anti-air infantry, and I've also got 6 squads of Stormers ready to come down in their Saisus to rush down and kill the VDV in this tree line here. So that's basically what I'm waiting on now. In the meantime though, I've got my recon tank that's moved up over here, the NM116. We've got my two NM195s still here defending. I've got these NM106 mortars that you might have seen me using. They're currently trying to attack these MTLB 82mm mortars. And up here, these freedom fighters, well, they just came in to do a pass on another Mi-26 that landed in the city. Val, unfortunately, beat me to it, though, with his LAV mortars. Now, seeing the threat of the ASU-85s on the left, I did bring up some Leopard 1A1 NOs to counter those. The ASUs have basically pretty bad guns. Not 6 accuracy and 9 AP power is nothing against 7 accuracy and 15 AP power of the Leopard 1A1. The ASU can't even attack the Leopard at max range, so I had a reasonable advantage on that side. And meanwhile on the right, I make a little bit of a mistake. I let a couple of my Saisus get destroyed before I drop out the Stormers because I was too preoccupied with the attack on the left side. Now this attack actually gets basically cut short by 2 Nighthawks that are brought in by Val, and he does bomb those ASUs out of position. Anyway, I lost all of my Stormers because of my mistake, or at least the 3 squads on the right, I lost those because my attention was diverted elsewhere. But I've dropped off my RBS 70 squads now, and along with the help of Val's Pivads, we managed to kill the rest of the Mi-17s in the area. This allows my Stormers, with the help of the Saisu fire support, to kill some of these Spetsnaz. Meanwhile at the back here, Val is once again mortaring a UAZ, and we do get the kill on that. Now my mortars are coming in to dislodge these Spetsnaz, and we're also trying to kill these VDV. But the main reason I'm winning these infantry battles isn't because I'm using Stormers, but because I have the APC fire support that I need in order to be successful. So we haven't got any more points since they forced us out of Hotel. And they have brought themselves up to 54 points. We are still stuck on 308. So we are still waiting for our time in order to push through and kill more of their UAZs. You can see over here, I've managed to get my Leopard 1A1s to come forwards and kill some VDV. Unfortunately, they do get pinned down by some Mi-17s, and I am forced to retreat them eventually. Due to the amount of helicopters that are just stunning them constantly. And we got a little skirmish with my RBS 70 bumping into some Razvedka, and we also wipe out the last VDV squad in this forest with the help of my Saisus at max range. So even though these Leopards aren't taking any damage, they're completely useless just because of the amount of rockets being fired at them, and that's something that PK did really well in this particular case. I do bring in some freedom fighters, as you can see, to try and take some of them out because they were basically being such a pain in the ass. I only managed to kill one with these freedom fighters, as I evac them in case of MiG-31s. Which do actually come in. Was a bit strange though. Talinki brought in these MiG-31s, presumably in order to counter my freedom fighters. But instead, maybe accidentally uses them to fire position onto a Saisu that was basically down here attacking his Razvedka. Now, if there wasn't so much AA, maybe it would have worked out and helped his Razvedka survive. But unfortunately, it just meant that MiG-31 got shot down, which is like 115 points, and the other two just had to evac. Now over here, my Volscreen Jaeger is still sitting here. Managed to kill one Mi-17 before that squad gets killed with the help of these other Mi-17s at longer range, which were able to use their rocket pods on my infantry. Over here, I managed to get the Leopard 101 NOs back all the way to this cover here. And they're a little bit damaged. You can see 3 of the tanks have 1 bar of damage, one has 3 bars of damage. The enemy tries to move forwards the Mi-17s on the right after killing my fullscreen, but instead of being successful like they were before, they bump into like 8 of my Saisus and plenty of Val's PVADs. Now Val does actually notice that his BVADs are running dangerously low on ammo, and thus brings in 3 M35 cargoes to sort that out. So it's got pretty static at the moment. At the start of the game, the pack side had the overwhelming advantage, but they didn't make use of it. And we've had chance now to reinforce all our positions. The amount of AI I have has pretty much doubled since then, and thus they are not being able to use their helicopter decks as effectively. Now, helicopters are extremely effective at the beginning of the game due to low amounts of AA. However, bringing lots of helicopters in at the beginning of the game is very susceptible to anti-helicopter fighters. Now, there are certain fighters that are extremely good at finding and killing the enemy helicopters. For instance, the MiG-27K I think is a good example. It's the anti-air MiG anyway, and it does so much damage, it's ridiculous. It can just shoot down multiple aircraft, and I think I had it demonstrated pretty heavily against me in probably my previous video, or maybe a couple of videos ago. Basically, MiG-27 came in and annihilated me. So now here you can see that Val brings in a Nighthawk to bomb the UAZ that I'd spotted earlier. Now my Freedom Fighters were going to the same target, but I saw Val's squads of Delta Force being pinned down by some Mi-17s, so I decided to bring them down and round to help out. But with the MiG-31s coming into the battlefield, I decided it was time to evac the Freedom Fighters, although once again the MiG-31s were used for ground attack. It was a bit strange, but I think they actually got away with it. Now my RBS-70 squads on this left side here, if you wonder why they're not firing, it's because they ran out of ammo, but thankfully Val's PVADs is keeping these Mi-17s at bay. And with this UAZ being destroyed but them not losing the sector, we know that there is inevitably another UAZ in the area. We kind of know that there is also not much ground defense. Because they're using so many helicopters, it's pretty obvious that there isn't going to be much ground presence. A MiG-31 is thankfully shot down over here. And knowing that there isn't really much other than helicopters that could stop me, I'm rushing my group of 8 Saisus to try and find the last UAZ in Bravo. Now at this point we've captured Hotel back, and we've also put a CV in Echo. Alongside that, I've brought up some M48A5s, which are basically patterns, and I've also got some units of Stormers, I think, following up. Now because we spotted this hard point of infantry, Val decides to bring in a wonderful Nighthawk to bomb the area, even before we spot the UAZ. It was a lovely preemptive strike, and it definitely did the job nicely. So here's a MiG-27K, the actual plane I was talking about. Really good against helicopters. I would recommend bringing that in if you're worried about enemy air presence. Now's time for an awesome dogfight. I've got 4 fighting falcons. See, this one really low on infrared missiles, but using its cannons to its best advantage. Meanwhile, I've got some freedom fighters attacking their MiG-31s, and I do manage to bring back 3 of the falcons after one gets shot down, followed by a second which gets hit by a radar missile. But I bring them back over my AA line, and because of that, the enemy does unfortunately lose a lot of their planes. Because we've managed to take out Bravo, this is 2 points again in our advantage. You can see we're at +4, 488 points, incredibly close to winning at this point. And the enemy is doing a last-ditch push with infantry over fields, which is never going to end well without smoke cover. You can see that's exactly what they tried to do, but unfortunately the game ends. So there we go. 27-minute and 39-second match. Incredibly fun game to play. I really enjoyed it. PK and Talinki made an incredibly good start, but unfortunately didn't really follow through. With that amount of helicopters and not much AA to counter it, especially if they'd noticed I was playing on a Norwegian deck, then, you know, they could have just steamrolled us at the start of the game and that would have been GG. But instead, they let us get back on our feet, and we eventually pushed them back once we'd realised that there wasn't going to be much ground forces opposing us due to the overwhelming amount of helicopters that were used. So yeah, there you go. That is pretty much everything I have to say. Val got 2,715 kills and 1,199 losses, did really well. I got exactly 3,000 kills and 1,092 losses, and you can see the enemy's scores there if you want to have a look. One thing that was quite funny was the amount of Mi-17s that were killed by our units. Some of Val's units did incredibly well and got multiple Mi-17 kills. For example, one of his adventures I think got like 8 Mi-17 kills, which is basically like 400 points for the price of like 45 points or 35 points, whatever an Avenger is. I'm actually not entirely sure, so I apologize for that. But you can see like one freedom fighter got a Mi-26 kill, an Mi-17 kill, a Spetsnaz squad kill, an Mi-17 kill, and a PTUR Conkers squad kill. It's just incredible. I think most of that came from attacking into the town. So, all interesting stuff. If you want to have a quick sneaky peeky at that, feel free to pause it anywhere along there. So, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I definitely enjoyed casting it, and I definitely think it was an incredibly fun game to play. By all means, I would have recorded it live if I'd known it was going to be that fun. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. Like I say, hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.